Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I sat in my truck for a few minutes and just cried.
An insurance company denied a BC Mountie coverage for an amputation after he was injured on the job. But when CBC News called, it changed its mind. Plus, BC braces for more cold, wet weather while businesses try to clean up.
We're calling it the castle walls.
And keep up.
It's just been rapid fire of getting umbrellas into the stores.
And
I will never be able to visit my school again.
This is the center of the community.
It's been empty for a decade, but officials have now voted to close one of BC's oldest schools for good.
We have submitted for funding many times and have been denied.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. An RCMP officer twice denied amputee insurance coverage after he was injured in the line of duty. Now the insurer has reversed its decision after CBC News asked for more information. As Jackie McKay explains, advocates say he is not alone.
I sat in my truck for a few minutes and just cried.
That's Jason Haidamaka just moments after learning he'd be receiving $55,000 for the loss of his leg, after his claim was twice denied by Canada Life.
It was just nice to have a moment to have something good happen and just be happy.
Haidamaka was on duty as an RCMP officer in 2019 when he suffered a serious soft tissue injury while making an arrest. That led to years of chronic pain and 2 failed surgeries before his doctors suggested amputation. We caught up with him in Calgary while he was in town for an appointment with his surgeon and heard his fight to get coverage for the injury that changed his life.
I just expected maybe a little bit more empathy from them, a little more thought.
At first, Canada Life said Haidamaka didn't qualify for his dismemberment payment, saying in a letter he needed an amputation within 2 years of the accident to qualify for the claim. Doctors only recommended his amputation after 5 years had passed. Despite that, when Haidamaka appealed the decision, the company denied him again.
This is an issue of not sitting around with a form and not mailing it or something like that. I was continuously trying to fix this injury.
Advocates say they've seen cases like this one before, as surgeons will use every intervention they can to save a person's limb after injury.
We often see that these set time frames set by different insurers will not reflect the reality of going through limb loss. The decision to amputate is unimaginable, and it should absolutely not be rushed for an individual.
A lawyer specializing in insurance says there's often gray area in how decisions are made.
There is room to negotiate. It's not an independent process.
Canada Life did not say why it suddenly approved Haidamaka's claim, but in a statement said it worked with RCMP to deliver a solution for him. Haidamaka's accident forced him into early retirement, putting a financial strain on his family. With the money, he plans on taking his kids on a road trip.
That would be a dream, would be to make that happen without worrying about the money part of it.
Haidamaka received his checks over the weekend. A happy end to 5 years of pain. Jackie McKay, CBC News, Vancouver.
Abbotsford police say one person has been arrested in connection with what they say is an extortion-related shooting in that city Wednesday night. This video was sent out by Abbotsford police. The force says officers were called to a business along King Road just before 10:45 p.m. No one was hurt. Officers then shared details of the suspect's vehicle with other police in the gang unit. It was later spotted on Highway 1 near Watcombe Road, and the driver, the only person inside, was arrested. They remain in jail. The Vancouver School Board has now voted to permanently close a historic school on the city's east side. It's been shut for a decade, but as Tanushi Bhatnagar reports, many are upset by this latest decision.
This is Sir Guy Carleton Elementary School, one of the oldest school buildings in BC. In the last 2 decades, it has seen 2 fires and 4 closure proposals. And in the last 10 years, it's been sitting empty after being badly damaged in one of those fires in 2016. Now the Vancouver School Board has voted to permanently close it, but many community members disagree with that decision.
This is the center of the community. It doesn't make sense to not have this be a school.
Lau's children would have gone to Carleton, a 3-minute walk for them. Hers is one of the many families distributed to other catchments nearby, some more than a 15-minute drive away.
I grew up myself in a neighborhood school, so I know what it's like to play with the kids on my block. And I know for a fact right now my kids don't have that.
Community members showed up to a board meeting on Wednesday with concerns and emotions.
I will never be able to visit my school again, and students will never attend Sir Guy Carleton again.
Some say the neighborhood's need for a school is growing by the day.
Just by building alone, that there must be more demand coming, and fairly soon. It's happening right now.
In a report, the board says it has spent nearly $650,000 on upkeep of the boarded-up school. To reopen it, they say millions are needed from the province.
We have submitted for funding many times, have been denied.
The Ministry of Infrastructure refused to comment and says the board closed the school based on data showing the 3 alternative schools would be able to handle the area's changing population.
Now to actually have it officially be closed and not know what's going to happen with the land, I think is really concerning.
As of right now, it is not clear what will happen at the site in the future. The board says it needs more time to discuss and finalize its next steps. Tanushi Bhatnagar, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC could face more flooding in the coming days. The forecast again calling for heavy rain, wind, even snow comes as people and animals are still recovering from several atmospheric rivers. And as Tanya Fletcher reports, scientists say expect more of them.
2 dozen minis, a dozen short, and 2 dozen long is the next order.
Staff at this umbrella warehouse have never been busier. The company supplies umbrellas to hundreds of retailers, these days moving 10,000 a week.
It's just been rapid fire of getting umbrellas into the stores, and they're leaving the stores as quickly as they are going in.
While Vancouver is known for its rain, the specific weather system responsible for this week's flooding is becoming more common.
We have seen an overall increase in the number of atmospheric rivers in Western Canada.
An atmospheric river is a large, narrow stream of water vapor in the atmosphere. It can stretch on for kilometers, and climate scientists say we can expect to see more of them.
A warmer atmosphere can hold more water vapor, and so that is a signature of climate change on Canada's climate that we are starting to see and we expect to intensify going forward.
Atmospheric rivers are a part of this region's natural cycle. They supply up to 90% of the yearly precipitation for the Pacific Northwest, and they're critical in maintaining Canada's water supply. But they can be problematic.
We really saw the impacts of what happens when we get consecutive storms, one after another.
That's what contributed to the Fraser Valley flooding this time and the historic floods here of 2021. Experts say governments need to be prepared.
There needs to be a lot of planning and redesigning of infrastructure so our bridges, our dams can accommodate greater flood levels.
7 more orders to do.
Back at the umbrella warehouse, this prolonged wet weather is extending their peak season.
So our high season really can start October, and we can run all the way through now until the end of May.
For them, a shifting business model based solely on the forecast. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Businesses in the sodden Fraser Valley are mopping up after the recent flooding. Among them is a well-known amusement park in Abbotsford. The CBC's Benit Braich takes us inside that cleanup.
It's been a harrowing number of days where we've been manning pumps and keeping water out of the basement.
Brian Weeb says the fun is not over at Castle Fun Park. The co-owner of the longtime Abbotsford landmark credits quick thinking crews and lessons learned from the devastating floods of 2021. A wall of concrete helped keep more water at bay this time.
We're calling it the castle wall. So it started as a lock block, so it's like Lego bricks, but really big concrete that you stack on top of one another.
And with a creek running right through their property, the park is now building even more protection. This berm.
Think of it like a big gravel mound, or almost like what you'd put down for a road. So that keeps the water from kind of permeating from the sides. That's a huge process to do that, but to wrap that around the entire building is quite the effort, and to kind of keep that same height. This is probably a good 6 to 7 feet higher than it was a few days ago.
All to better protect their games and underwater themed golf course in the basement.
Carpets are being ripped out, they're being dried, the pumps are on, dehumidifiers are on, and much of this area is actually built out of concrete, so that makes it easier to clean, and also crews are continuing to sanitize it down here as well.
Weeb says less than 2 feet of floodwater ended up in here compared to around 8 feet in 2021.
We started hauling equipment down the hill via rope access, and I think we had a chain of 10 people. At one point we were extracting roughly 20,000 gallons per minute.
Here was here 36 hours straight. I was on site for about 23 myself.
Staff hope all this work means they can welcome visitors back inside the castle walls in a matter of days.
It's sort of a landmark, it's an icon, a lot of nostalgia there. And we want to keep making it a huge part of the community, and we have lots of plans.
Benit Brach, CBC News, Abbotsford.
We are officially 1 week away from Christmas, and this time of year, many travelers are trying to get home for the holidays, among other places. Well, Vancouver International Airport was set to have its busiest day of the season, but as Jessica Chung is finding out, travelers say their experience has been smooth.
There's been a steady flow of passengers coming into YVR today as the holiday travel season is in full swing. Lines are growing, congestion here is increasing as the airport is seeing its busiest day of the year. Nearly 77,000 passengers are expected to pass through the airport today, and this is just the start. Almost 3 million are expected to pass through during the holiday season. That's between December 1st and January 12th, and that's nearly 70,000 people per day, which is a record here at YVR. Now, this year's count is 2% higher than in 2019, which is the year that held the previous historic high. And while there are a lot of people expected to come through the airport today, the travelers that we spoke to said that things were running smoothly for them.
Good, like doesn't feel that crowded.
I was preparing for it to be quite busy. Yeah, I came 3 hours early, so even just for a domestic flight, but yeah, it's not bad at all.
It's been totally fine. I don't think it's busy at all. We found parking on the first level and check-in's empty. So I'm shocked to see it's the busiest day of the year.
YVR says no additional staff were called in today, but they did reallocate some crews to busy choke points to kind of move things along. The agency also says that they've put in place some new technologies that's meant to speed up the process for passengers.
Domestically, we have new CT screening machines, which means you do not need to take those big electronics, small liquids out of your bag. That really speeds up the flow there.
Travelers coming to the airport this holiday season are being asked to be prepared. Make sure to bring your important documents and make sure that they're up to date. Also be mindful about what you bring. The airport is asking people, for example, to not bring wrapped gifts in the event that the items inside need to be inspected. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Richmond.
Darius Madavi's taking the day off, so Wesley English, our meteorologist in West Kelowna, is here with the forecast and bundled up for good reason.
Oh, yes. Well, a cold front passed through southern BC today. That's why it was very wet and windy on the south coast. We saw gusts up to 50 kilometers an hour today at YVR. And this cold front caused a reverse temperature trend. Let's take a look at the almanac. So as you can see on your screen, today's high was at 8 degrees, but that was early this morning at 1 a.m. And then cool air moved in this afternoon around 1 p.m. It dropped it down to around 5 degrees. And we will see the rain ease off for Metro Vancouver tonight, but we will still see showers tomorrow. I'll have all the details coming up.
Sounds great. Thanks, Wesley.
You're welcome.
Up next, why mayors from across Metro Vancouver are calling on the province to ease housing legislation and improve funding for transit. Justin McElroy will break it down for you next.
This is Vancouver is a new CBC podcast where we explore the issues, the stories, and the people that make this place home. Listen to This is Vancouver wherever you get your podcasts.
A BC Mountie found to have committed discreditable conduct for making inappropriate comments in group chats has been ordered to resign within 14 days or be fired. An RCMP adjudicator says the actions of Coquitlam Constable Ian Sullivan were a fundamental breach of the public trust, adding that letting him remain a Mountie on the force would further damage the RCMP's reputation. The two other officers involved in making racist and sexist comments in the group chat will learn their fates in the new year. The SPCA on the Sunshine Coast says of the dozens of cats someone left at its gate in Sechelt, some will be put up for adoption on Friday. The SPCA says someone left 32 cats inside plastic containers on their doorstep on December 5th. Staff said they didn't see who left the boxes outside the gate. They quickly opened the containers to get them out, then spent several hours triaging those animals that had been placed inside with the lids taped shut.
I don't think it was done with any sort of malicious intent, but really, because it was taped up and no air holes, it was kind of a touchy situation for those cats to be in.
15 of the cats had to be transferred to Surrey's Animal Centre. Unfortunately, one of them has died. The remaining cats have now completed their quarantine period. The agency is investigating what happened under BC's Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. As 2025 comes to a close, Metro Vancouver politicians continue to lobby higher levels of government for more funding for transit and freedom on housing policies, among other things. But as Justin McElroy explains, they're also dealing with their own governance issues.
Metro Vancouver politicians spent their last week in meetings before the holidays doing what politicians often do, blaming other politicians at other levels of government.
I know to some people watching this, it's going to look like we are actually the third Spider-Man in that meme, that we are also the one pointing fingers at senior government.
That was New Westminster Mayor Patrick Johnstone during a meeting at the TransLink Mayor's Council. They received an update on the federal government's public transit fund. TransLink says it reduces overall money available to them and now requires matching dollars from provinces, requiring new rounds of negotiation. It came as a disappointment to mayors who have already raised fares and property taxes this year for TransLink, but rely on higher levels of government for more power and funding to the system.
I'm afraid that it'll sound like we're pointing fingers when we're not. We've already done our work, and they have not done their work, and we need to be clear with that.
But pointing fingers is sort of what mayors do. That same day, 16 of 21 Metro Vancouver mayors signed a letter asking the province to roll back legislation, which is forcing some of them to build new housing whether they like it or not.
The province's housing legislation has been one of the most ill-conceived, poorly thought out policy initiatives that this province has ever suffered under.
In response, the province basically told the mayors to get lost, and the next day Metro Vancouver showed that it had its own problems to deal with.
It's an extremely challenging time. You know, we're trying to provide all the utilities throughout the region, and to have these leaks, it's not a sign of good governance.
At a confidential meeting, there was debate over the proper procedure to ultimately dismiss their chief financial officer. That information was leaked, along with a request from at least one board member to debate suspending the chief administrative officer. Metro Vancouver Chair Mike Hurley called the leaks misinformation, and several directors argued to CBC that it didn't fully reflect the conversation at the table. But they also admitted that if they can't show the province they can resolve their own governance issues internally, it doesn't help when they lobby externally.
We do need to be working hand in hand with the province to be able to make sure that we are governing in an adequate way.
So on one hand, cities want other governments to provide more money for transit and more autonomy on housing, but they also want FAIF to deal with their governance issues without the hammer coming down. It may or may not work, but with an election on the way in 2026, the Spider-Man memes will likely continue. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Two views of the Squamish Chief from earlier today. From below, foggy and wet, but go up high, and there's a lot of snow, all wintry once you've taken the gondola up to the top. So what's on your weekend weather forecast? Westla English will explain province-wide coming up.
This is Vancouver is a new CBC podcast where we explore the issues, the stories, and the people that make this place home. Listen to This is Vancouver wherever you get your podcasts.
Canada's Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier found themselves fielding questions on Washington's latest trade demands earlier today. The U.S. laid out conditions to extend the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA as it's known, next year. David Thurton reports on what those are and how Canadian political leaders are responding.
Good morning, Premier.
Ontario's Premier back on Parliament Hill meeting with the Prime Minister. The two leaders signed a new deal that's supposed to help speed up resource projects in that province, but instead faced questions about U.S. trade, including bans on American booze.
When the Prime Minister and President Trump come up with a great deal for both countries, we'd be more than happy to bring in some maybe Kentucky bourbon. But until then, we're going to hold off.
This after American Trade Representative Jameson Greer listed Washington's demands when the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Trade Agreement, or CUSMA, comes up for review next year. Those include lifting bans on American booze, changes to laws that require U.S. web giants to finance Canadian media content, plus market access for American dairy. The Prime Minister unwilling to budge on that.
We continue to stand by that. We'll continue to protect supply management.
Trump is not backing down either.
Tariffs, my favorite word, tariffs.
Even raising the possibility in recent days of tearing up the North American trade deal altogether. In an interview with CBC News, Carney said he didn't hear that when he last met with the Mexican and American leaders.
He did not say any of those things. What we talked about, the two presidents and myself, we talked about the process for reviewing, renegotiating CUSMA.
Trade talks, though, have not restarted ever since
America's jobs and growth are at stake.
This anti-tariff ad paid for by the Ontario government aired in the U.S.
And that was the best ad that's ever been run, 12.4 billion views. We wanted to bring it to the attention of the American people.
The Prime Minister said Canada is ready to sit down any day and negotiate with the U.S. But downplaying expectations, Carney said the next opportunity to negotiate probably won't happen till the CUSMA review, which starts next year. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Premier David Eby is closing out 2025, facing a major challenge. Our legislative reporter Katie DeRosa sat down with David Eby to talk about the last year and what's next.
Premier David Eby started this year bracing against looming U.S. tariffs and economic attacks from President Donald Trump. He ends the year facing perhaps the biggest challenge of his premiership. Criticized by Indigenous leaders for threatening to walk back the NDP's reconciliation promises, criticized by business leaders and the official opposition for the uncertainty created by two court decisions the province lost. One on Aboriginal title enrichment that raises questions about private property rights. The other from the BC Court of Appeal about Indigenous consultation on mining that has led to calls to repeal the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, or DRIPA.
I've expressed my frustration about the court judgment that came out of the Court of Appeal.
That frustration came out in a speech to the BC Chamber of Commerce, where Eby slammed what he called dramatic and unhelpful decisions that threatened to damage public support for cooperation with First Nations. Eby acknowledged that DRIPA, passed unanimously in 2019, has had unintended consequences and must be amended.
It'll make it very clear that this agreement between us and First Nations was to work together and negotiate at the table. It was not to create conflict, division, litigation, additional lawsuits. We don't always get it right. We have to pull it back and reset and go again.
First Nations leaders, including a former NDP MLA who served in cabinet alongside Eby, worry those changes could weaken the promise of First Nations consultation that the NDP enshrined in law.
If we amend these rights, we are going backwards.
Why is the Premier acting in a way that creates uncertainty? We should be standing up for First Nations.
The BC Conservatives lay the blame for the problems squarely at Eby.
In 2019, David Eby, the top law official in the province of BC, stood in the legislature and told British Columbians that we would not be seeing the situation that we're seeing today as a result of DRIPA. He was 100% wrong on that.
One pollster says the confusion over Aboriginal title and private property rights is proving to be the biggest challenge Eby has faced as premier.
I think this is probably the most significant one because of everything that it represents.
Eby says the province is working on a plan to underwrite mortgages and offer loan guarantees for property owners in South Richmond impacted by the Cowichan Aboriginal land title decision. He says it's an interim measure while the province files its appeal. The opposition leader, however, says it's a sign of a panicked premier trying to manage the fallout. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
Back to federal politics now, and what a difference a year makes. Last December, the federal Liberals were poised for electoral obliteration, and Mark Carney was not in Parliament. You know most of the rest of the story, so the CBC's Rosemary Barton recently spoke with the Prime Minister about the year behind and what is ahead.
The Prime Minister says he got into politics to respond to the moment Canada was facing, the threat of Donald Trump and an economy in critical need of growth. Elected just over 7 months ago, Carney's rapid ascent to Liberal leader and Prime Minister is just one of the many ways Canadian politics has shifted so dramatically in the past year. Carney came close to a majority, but it was a decision by two former Conservatives in recent weeks to cross the floor to join the Liberal caucus that has brought him even closer. Carney sees those defections as a sign that how he is addressing the country's challenges is what is needed.
I think that there is a spectrum of MPs with varying degrees of recognition of the serious situation the country is in, varying degrees of recognition that we need action, not slogans, that we need cooperation with the provinces, that we need to come together and work together.
Carney would not say whether there are ongoing attempts to recruit more members of Parliament to his side, but he did have an answer to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's criticism that the Prime Minister should be respecting the will of voters and not trying to make, quote, backroom deals.
I want to go back to what my question was, which was, are you comfortable getting a majority government through people crossing the floor?
I am comfortable commanding the confidence of the House of Commons and getting through the House of Commons, getting support in the House of Commons and votes, and obviously votes and support in the House of Commons for legislation that is going to protect Canadian communities, that's going to build this country, that's going to make our country more independent, more sustainable, more prosperous.
Of course, a large part of what got Carney elected was his promise to stand up to Donald Trump. The Prime Minister points to the efforts he is making to strengthen the Canadian economy and diversify trading partners. So far, though, there is no tariff deal with the U.S. president. But on the future of the trilateral CUSMA trade deal, Carney says he got clear indications at his last meeting with Trump and the Mexican president.
What you understand Donald Trump's position on CUSMA to be right now? You had that meeting with him and President Sheinbaum not too long ago. Yes. At that point, did he say the deal is dead, I'm ripping it up? What indications did you get?
He did not say any of those things.
In fact, the Prime Minister says while a better deal with the United States is possible and important, it is not everything. Rosemary Barton, CBC News, Ottawa.
This Sunday will be a day of reflection in Australia, a week after the deadly Bondi Beach attack. The CBC's Georgie Smythe now with the moves by government to get guns off the streets.
On the surface, Australia's gun laws seemed to be keeping people safe. But this week's mass shooting that killed 15 people at a Hanukkah event exposes weaknesses, say advocates.
We're so complacent in Australia because we believe we've got the best gun laws in the world.
After another mass shooting almost 30 years ago killed 35 people, the laws were tightened and hundreds of thousands of guns were surrendered. It came to define Australia's approach to guns.
About 80% of Australians believe that our laws are either about right or not strong enough.
6 firearms were registered to attacker Sajid Akram. A shotgun and 2 precision rifles were used in the attack at Bondi Beach. Now Australia will launch another gun buyback program as it moves to tighten several gun laws.
In America, so much gun violence happens, but the government doesn't really do anything. So I'm kind of, I'd say I'm kind of proud that our government is very quick to respond.
I've got friends that have got guns, they lock them up in safes and they use them for
especially out in the country.
But many say more than gun laws need to change, anti-Semitism needs to be tackled. Australia's Jewish community says it hasn't been listened to.
Anger flaring at the funeral of the youngest victim, Matilda.
They're burying a 10-year-old child.
We're burying innocent children. These unbelievable humans.
The Australian government says reforms are coming to further restrict and penalise hate speech.
It is clear we need to do more to combat this evil scourge, much more.
Through it all, there are scenes of unity. The crowd at the Bondi Memorial honouring young Matilda, and thousands paddled out for another tribute on the water. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Sydney.
For Metro Vancouver's Jewish community, this year's Hanukkah has been a mix of celebration and mourning following the massacre in Australia last weekend. But as Jonna Bailon reports, they're also finding strength in the holiday's message.
There's cocaine oil also.
Fresh out of the oven at this 35-year-old kosher bakery, potato latkes, suganyots or jelly donuts, and more.
Everything oil. Hanukkah, there's oil.
A reminder of the miracle of the oil that once kept a candle burning for 8 days straight. So the story behind the holiday goes.
Hanukkah, we have to be happy. That's the most important. We have to be happy, family, light the candle, eat nice dinner, and enjoy with all whatever's happening in the world.
Last weekend's mass shooting on a Hanukkah event in Australia casting a shadow on this year's holiday.
It makes it difficult to celebrate this holiday the way it's supposed to be celebrated, with joy.
But Vancouver's Jewish community says they're determined to fight through that shadow.
I feel like it's the only way to go on, though, is to rededicate ourselves, that message of Hanukkah.
It reminds us that we can overcome great adversity to do good things and to bring ourselves back to the core of who we are as Jewish people. It's also a time of talking about the way that light vanquishes darkness.
A kernel of light that families get together to remember.
You know, I light the Hanukkah menorah with my children, and I have young kids. So for me, it's we say lador vador, from generation to generation.
With every candle, a reminder to extend kindness.
One of the beautiful parts of the Hanukkah tradition is believe in miracles. And everyone has a miracle. Everyone can be a miracle. All we need to do is to pass it on.
And on the fifth night of Hanukkah,
the fifth night is the most special night for us because it's the first night where there's more light than darkness. And that's really special.
Happy Hanukkah!
Jonna Bailon, CBC News, Vancouver.
All across Metro Vancouver, cranes are lit up to celebrate the season. But how do they get them dressed up for the winter season? We're going to speak to a man who does just that and ask him what it takes to get the festive job done. That is next.
So I know when I really like a song, if within the first 3 seconds, I'm already vibing to it.
Hey, I'm Rohith Joseph. Vibin' is the new show all about discovering great new songs and fresh artists from across BC and beyond.
It's not one person dictating what good music is, it's the community sharing what good music is.
Stream Vibin' on CBC Listen.
Construction cranes across Metro Vancouver are quite the sight most times of the year, but during the holidays, they add an extra sparkle to the local skyline. Over the years, an unofficial contest developed between construction workers as they tried to make their crane the brightest on the block. Take a look at this story with Ian Hanamansing from 1993 as those crews decked the halls.
It is currently the tallest construction crane in the city, 36 stories high, dressed up for Christmas.
There's 9 strings, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, 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 along here.
On a blustery day earlier this month, a team of steelworkers clambered over the cold crane, stringing hundreds of lights.
And it's a nice windy day today, too.
Over the years, an unofficial contest has developed in Vancouver as construction workers try to make their crane the brightest on the block.
It's very important. Everyone in the construction field is always trying to outdo the other guy.
The biggest challenge is the weather. Shortly after these pictures were taken, the workers stopped decorating for the day.
We were too cold, it was too windy, the lights were blowing all over the place, so we had to come back up the next day and finish the job, and that didn't even do it. We had to come back up a third day after that. We had some pretty strong winds.
To the inexperienced, it is terrifyingly high up here. And so it might not seem unreasonable to wonder why anyone would spend any more time than they had to on this crane stringing Christmas lights. But the people who do this say take one look around Vancouver at night, and the answer is self-evident.
The steelworkers say they're proud to add some seasonal sparkle to Vancouver's skyline. And the reaction from down below?
It's nice. It's beautiful, actually. It's kind of nice to look at them.
I'm kind of thinking about moving here, and it makes me think, oh, there's lots of building going here. That's a good sign. And I might not have noticed it otherwise.
The workers say decorating these cranes isn't particularly tough, but they're in no rush to go back up there to take them down. On most sites, they'll wait until construction is finished and the cranes dismantled before removing this year's Christmas decorations. Ian Hanamansing, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some things remain the same, but there have been some pretty big changes when it comes to putting Christmas lights up on cranes. Jesse Ripestra is in that business of putting up Christmas lights on homes and up much higher. He runs Outlines Christmas Lighting and joins us now. Jesse, as jobs go, this is a unique one. How did you get into the business of putting up Christmas lights on cranes?
Yeah, hey, nice to be with you. So I've done residential lighting on houses for about 8 years, and I've grown my business, my network increased, and I work off season for a construction company. And I'm looking up at the crane, and I was like, it'd be cool if I could put up lights on this crane. I knew the site super. I asked him, everything was good. And then I invested my time into putting up lights on this crane. I climbed up, I installed the lights, and that's how I got into that. And I posted, the video that you might have seen on my website. I made a drone photography video of this showing the process. And ever since then, once that's been posted, it's just grown from there.
What's your favorite thing about putting lights up that high?
Oh, there's just something about climbing out on a crane boom 200 feet up in the air with a small group of your good friends and, just having a good time. And then when you climb down and look up back at the sky and seeing what you've done, it's quite phenomenal.
Big feeling of satisfaction, I imagine. Now, technology has changed quite a bit when it comes to lighting. How has that changed your business?
From what I've known from the past, the lighting systems used to be a lot more incandescent, a lot more heavy power use, and now today, transitioning to just LED lighting and having such long strings of lights where you can do, different colors and different options. It makes it a lot easier to handle, and it makes it a lot easier to install, longer lasting, more reliable, and allows for cleaner installation, along with being able to handle the harsh weather conditions in the Vancouver area.
Have you ever had any odd requests or big challenges when it comes to people asking you to do something perhaps more elaborate on a crane?
I haven't had any crazy requests yet. I mean, I did 2 cranes on Oak Street in Vancouver a couple years ago. They wanted one blue and one green to kind of fit with the Vancouver Canucks.
That's a good color combination for those who are fans of the team. Why do you think construction companies like to put up lights on their cranes? Is it beyond just something like advertising?
I think lighting up cranes serves a few purposes. There's the visibility and safety for one. You know, the cranes are up for a duration of a few months to even a year or two. And then there's the branding. A well-lit crane stands out and it really represents the company's presence on a project. And the public does enjoy seeing the cityscapes filled with holiday lighting as well.
Yeah. They certainly stand out, that is for sure. Jesse Ripestra, owner of Outlines Christmas Lighting, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you very much.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Give today to bring more progress and possibilities to patients and their families. Your donation changes everything.
Here with the BC-wide forecast is meteorologist Wesla English, joining us once again from West Kelowna. What is next after a very busy couple of weeks? Good Lord.
Oh, yes. It's been very active in the weather department. We had a cold front roll through southern British Columbia today. And as a result, we saw rain, we saw wind, and we saw snow in many parts of the BC interior as well. Okay, let's get into things. Here's a look at the satellite and radar. And the last 12 hours, well, the central interior had snow. The southern interior had both rain and snow. And then most of BC had very gusty winds. Over the next 24 hours, that system that rolled through today will head east and exit, and the interior areas will see a drier trend for Friday. However, that onshore flow will keep showers falling over the coastal sections, and we'll even see the risk of thunder showers for the central coast and parts of the south coast as well. Tonight, the northern half still in the deep freeze, down to minus 23 in Fort St. John tonight. Central interior also extremely cold with blowing snow overnight. Tomorrow, we will see a bit of everything in the northern interior, lingering flurries Friday morning, and then a chance of sun in the afternoon. Minus 11 is your high in Quesnel. Southern half of BC, some of that cold Arctic air is going to slowly seep into this area. Cooling temperatures off a few degrees, 3 for a high in Kamloops with clearing tomorrow, but showers will linger for the coastal sections. Victoria, highs of 8 degrees for Friday. Here's a look at your 5-day forecast for the Okanagan. We saw snow at higher elevations today, but it's still bare down in the valley base with no snow on the ground yet. That's the key word. The Okanagan will see a cool down as we get into the weekend, and the snow levels will fall all the way down to the valley base over the next few days. We'll likely see some snow accumulation at the valley base after the weekend and by next week. For the next 5 days around Metro Vancouver, in the wake of the cold front, the risk of showers and a thunder shower remains in the forecast for tomorrow. It will continue to be breezy at times for Friday. In the morning, with freezing levels low enough, we could even see some flurries on higher terrain. So if you are on Burnaby Mountain, for example, might see an early morning flurry Friday morning. As we head into Saturday, the showers will linger around and then rain back on Sunday. Dan, I hope you have a good pair of gumboots for the next few days.
They've been getting a workout, that is for sure. Wesla English, thanks very much.
Thank you.
A product that will help binners work with more dignity and through rough weather. Coming up, a look at the project created by a Montreal agency. You'll want to see this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
CBC is a returning partner of the Push International Performing Arts Festival, January 22nd to February 8th. The festival features presentations of groundbreaking contemporary works of theater, dance, music, and multimedia. And ring in the new year with CBC. Watch a special live broadcast on New Year's Eve on CBC Gem, CBC TV, and the CBC News BC streaming channel. Coverage begins at 5 p.m.
In many big cities like Vancouver, you can find binners, people who earn money by collecting and returning refundable containers. They walk the streets in all sorts of weather and face other hardships. But as Sharon Yonan Reynolds explains, a Montreal organization has launched a project that's providing them with help and dignity, one bag at a time.
As far as we know, this is really the first tool of its kind. These people are working incredibly hard. They're not valued, they're not seen, and they're working with whatever they can find on the street, plastic bags, shopping trolleys. We got in contact with Les Valoristes, and they put us in touch with working binners so we could go with them and see how they do their job and what it's like. The material, it's a lightweight industrial tarp, so it's weatherproof, very affordable. There's a drawstring opening at the top. There's a lot of binners work at night, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It's dark, drivers aren't going to see them. So this was really an important feature that they appreciated. The pilot project is 25 bags. So we're getting those out into the streets in Montreal, and we'll be working with the binners that are using them and getting their feedback. And then the hope is that we get funding from different municipalities, if any private organizations want to get involved, so that we can expand the program and produce hundreds and hopefully thousands of bags in the future. Is going to give them the respect that they deserve. And this is what it's really all about, is giving these people the dignity that they deserve, because they work incredibly hard and their work benefits society, benefits the city, benefits the environment. And we're really proud that this is something that's starting in Montreal, and we hope it's just going to grow as big as it can get.
Now, with 1 week left before Christmas, one can't blame Santa Claus for having cold feet. There you go. Father Christmas and Mrs. Claus have cheer to spread, even underwater. The iconic couple donned more than their red suits to plunge into the holiday mood. They even brought a Christmas tree along into this marine aquarium in Rio de Janeiro. The organizers hope St. Nick, swimming with sharks, manta rays, and other fish, will help conservation efforts while lifting everyone's spirits. Big fish. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, cbc.ca/BC. We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.